come to a developing country and find out, oh, they're gonna pay you like $2 to $3 an hour. You're like, oh my goodness. So at that point, I was like, hey, maybe let's just go back to Canada because we can make more money.
Welcome to the Immigrant Experience in America, an immigrant human library, where we amplify and humanize the experiences of immigrants in the United States and around the world. Listen in as we add another story to our immigrant human library. Hello, my friends, and thanks for joining us on another episode. We're happy to bring to you a new friend of our podcast. Her name is Cami. She's joining us from Jamaica, and we'll be discussing with Cami, reasons surrounding why she left Canada, now living in Jamaica, and how that's all going. Apparently, there's quite a number of people who are leaving the cold, leaving Canada, leaving the US for a myriad of reasons. And so we're trying to hear their voices and to find out really what's going on. Why are people heading south, east, west, to Europe, other places too? So welcome, Cami.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that welcome.
You're welcome. So tell us a little bit about Cami and your heritage.
Okay. Well, I am Canadian, with a Jamaican background. Like my grandparents, my father, my grandparents, they're all from Jamaica. But I was born in Canada. Um, let's see, I am in my early 30s. I am retired, which is something different. A lot of people ask about that.
Oh, I want to hear more. Tell me more later. What
Absolutely.
am I doing wrong?
Yeah, a lot of people they ask about that. It's very interesting. So, first, I was working remotely. I've only been retired for about a year. First, I was working remotely, and then that company let me go. And I said, you know what? I spoke with my husband, who is also Jamaican, and I'm like, hey, I'm not working. The job market sucks. I'm burnt out. Um, you're not working right now. How about we do something different? So we did something different. We moved from Ontario to Saskatchewan, where we knew nothing and nobody, and we bought a house for fairly cheap and had no mortgage. And I was like, let's just, how about we do something different? How about we lived in Jamaica before? We know the cost of living in Jamaica. How about let's go back? I mean, we're considering other places. We're considering like Costa Rica and Panama and such. But I'm like, wait, why not Jamaica? We've lived in Jamaica before. It's going to be a very soft landing if we go back there. All of your family is there. He was very happy about that. Not every Jamaican is happy to go back to Jamaica, I don't think, but he was certainly very happy about that. So we rented out the home and packed our stuff and went out there, and now we just focus on the things we want. So he spearfishes. He has a spearfishing channel. I have my YouTube channel and some things that I'm working on, some digital products and such. And that's kind of how we live life right now. So
Oh, that's so cool that working from, it's kind of like from anywhere, the place where you want to be, right? Rather than being tied down to Ontario like you from before. Wow. Oh, okay, okay, okay. I'm meeting more people. I'm getting closer to my goal here. So, okay, but so I'm wondering, why even the thought of wanting to leave Canada? Because most people back on the island would think you're in the US, you're in Canada, you're in the UK. Like, what are you talking about leaving? Like, educate us. Like, what was going on?
yeah, so there's a couple of things. It's very funny because when my husband and I first got married, I moved to Jamaica to be with him because he had no interest in going to Canada. Surprisingly, no interest. So I moved here to be with him, and eventually I convinced him to go over. And when I left the first time, I couldn't wait to get out. I couldn't wait to get out of Jamaica. I'm like, get me out of here. I'm done. But then being in Canada for a little bit and us living there, number one, it can be cold. Like more than half the year or more is cold. And that kind of sucks. It's kind of like, it looks bleak outside. You can't really do much. Like, it's not, when you're a kid, it's more fun because you have more time. You can, like, go sledding, you can go play in the snow. But when you're older, it's just like, this snow is impeding my way to get to wherever I need to go because I have to shovel to get there. I have to defrost the car. There's slush on the ground. It's gray outside. Like, I'm not getting enough vitamin D. It's just overall kind of sucks. So the cold was not great. Did not like the weather. But the biggest thing was cost of living. And I think that's why a lot of people are thinking about moving away from Canada. Like I have heard other people talk about moving away from Canada because the cost of living is just ridiculously high, especially in Ontario. Saskatchewan, the prairies, it's not as bad, but it's getting there. Um, but in particular, what did it for me was the cost of living, especially once my company let me go. I mean, first of all, as I mentioned, I was burned out. Um, and I'm like, I don't know if I can mentally handle another job right now. Like, I tried applying for jobs. I was working remotely, so like I had that going for me, and I was applying to other remote jobs, but I'm like, mentally, I don't even know if I can handle another job right now. And even if I were to work part time, as it stands, even though we don't have a mortgage, it still wouldn't be enough to cover our bills. And my husband, yeah, like he could work, but I'm just like, let's just not. Maybe if we have the option to not work, let's just not. Um, and yeah, so it was really just the cost of living that was the biggest thing that caused our move because again, Jamaica, the cost of living has increased in Jamaica for sure, but it's not Canada, right? And as well, in my mind, I'm like, okay, at least if all else fails, I know that I can go live in a bush if I need to. Like my family has land in Jamaica as well. It's undeveloped, but like Jamaica is so fruitful. Like the weather is, it's good all year round. It's hot all year round. You can grow things all year round, unlike Canada. So if you want to sustain yourself that way, you can do it. In Canada, it's immensely more difficult. In Jamaica, the cultural difference as well, I think helps because I feel like in Jamaica, if you're hungry, you can find food. Either you can ask somebody and somebody will feed you, or you can. There's a lot of fruit around. You could just go like pick a fruit off a tree,
That's true.
right? You can just go pick a fruit off the tree. Like I've never heard of anyone dying from starvation in Jamaica. Maybe somebody has, but like I've never heard of it because there's just so much abundance here, right? The weather is conducive for that. Can I feel like nature can better support people here. So I'm like, okay, yes, cost of living, but also if all else fails, I know that the earth can better support me here. Like I know if I need to, I can really just go like make a home out in the bush and I can either my husband can spearfish, we can have fish that way, we can still get like our vitamins from that type of meat. We can still get like food from plants and from the earth and from like the bush. We can still make tea. We can still be very healthy as opposed to Canada. So those are the two biggest things: cost of living, and the weather, I would say. But in terms of other people leaving Canada, cost of living, I would say, is the biggest thing. Weather is here or there. Some people enjoy the cold, some people don't. Um, but I would say weather is not weather. cost of living is the biggest reason. Because I knew someone else who he was a teacher and he moved from, I want to say New Brunswick or Nova Scotia to Mexico. And he did that like years before I did. I met him afterwards and he said, yeah, like he moved for cost of living, but also the medical system in Canada is it's getting worse, I would say. Like the availability of doctors and the availability of um, just if you need something, like if you go to the hospital, I guess, you'll be treated appropriately, but outside of that, it can be difficult sometimes to even get a family doctor. And he's in Mexico and he's like, "Oh, I have my doctor on WhatsApp." I'm like, "Excuse me? You have your doctor on WhatsApp and your doctor does house calls?" In Canada, never. Never. Like you would never have that. So for some people, it's also like a medical thing as well. They find that in other countries, there are better support systems that way. Um, yeah, I would say that for most people, but definitely cost of living. That is the biggest thing. Everybody's complaining about it. A lot of people are struggling. And when the average home in Ontario is like 800,000 ad dollars, it's like people my age, they're never going to be able to afford a home. They can barely afford a down payment.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was shocking when I heard, actually. I know of a few people who live there, and I never really considered, I always thought Canada overall was probably a much more cost-effective option. They have more land. They're trying to attract more population because it's so vast and less people go there. So perhaps some might say the immigration rules might be a little bit more lax. Like you could, if you have a degree, you can apply for yourself and get into the country on your own and things like that to get legal permanent residency. So it seems like people were getting in much easier. There's a way more demand for the U.S. But I was really shocked when I heard real estate prices. $500,000, 800,000. I mean, like, that's insane. I mean, and real estate has gone crazy, bunkers here in the US since the pandemic. Don't get me wrong. But I think you can still find a place for 100 something, 200,000 something. But for a young person to be talking about $800,000 off the bat as like the regular average housing price, that's insane. And I was shocked by that.
Yeah, I mean, if they were to move out to other provinces, more specifically, I would say Saskatchewan, Newfoundland, maybe Manitoba. New Brunswick still has some decent options as well, although the prices are going up quite a bit in New Brunswick. Because it's like everyone had the same idea at the same time to move out of Ontario and go to New Brunswick, so the house prices just shot up. So if they go out there, but the issue is that out in those places there aren't as many jobs, right? Like when we bought our home for $50,000. And people are like, "Excuse me, you bought your home for $50,000?" I said, "Yes, well, we had to move away. There was a trade off. We had to move away from all of our family, all of our friends. The main reason we moved is because I was making really good money working from home. I was making like almost 100K working from home. So I'm like, hey, let's go out there because we'll be okay. But in terms of the average person, if you're going to go out there and look for jobs, it may be more difficult because those places aren't as densely populated as Ontario, right? So it may be a little more difficult finding jobs. I mean, I still recommend people try it, but a lot of people are like, I'm going to go out there. It's going to be colder out there. Like, there's more land, but it's also way colder and it'll stay colder probably for more time than it would in Ontario. Um, so yeah, it's like yeah, they can go out there. There's some decent house prices, but they're that price for a reason because nobody's out there. So,
Right. Wow. Well, that's a reality. I think a reality check for a lot of people who will be listening to your episode of what life is like moving to Canada. Because I think a lot of people, when they're in developing countries, they think Canada, US, UK, or anywhere else because there's more job opportunities or study opportunities. But the reality is that there are some of these difficult challenges. There's a lot of people that I've noted living in apartments in Canada. There's in Ontario area. I think we visited Brampton over the
okay.
Christmas holidays. There were just high-rise apartment buildings everywhere, and the stuff that they were saying these are like great areas and high priced, and I'm just like, really? This is it?
Yeah.
It's like, okay. But I suppose because there's so much a demand and there's so many people who are in that little area there that it drives up the prices. And yeah, wow, that's a reality check for folks listening, so pay attention, make sure you research and know where you're going. Don't just ready to up and leave what you have back home or wherever you're native to. Living might be cheaper for you there. And a lot of places, people overseas are not paying rent. Like people who have lived in Jamaica for decades or have family, they're not paying rent. They have fruit trees. We have to go to the store to buy everything we eat.
Yep.
If we don't eat, okay? Unless
Yep.
we plant something in our backyard. And a lot of people who are in the urban places, you don't really have space to do that. So think twice or think it through before you just jump and go. But I'm intrigued to Cami about why your first experience in Jamaica when you said you moved to be there. Like, what was that like for you leaving Canada? I'm sure you probably had visited years before with your family, right? And you were familiar. But what was that experience with? Maybe there were cultural clashes or other things going on. Like, what was that like?
Um, well, mostly when I visited, like when I was like young, I had visited one time with family, but after that it was when I was an adult and I was just on vacation. So most of the time when I visited, I was on vacation, in vacation mode, staying on the resorts. Um, and so I was kind of the first time, like when I visited, I was kind of in La La Land because I was in love, right? Like I had my husband, I was in love. But there were some things that were, um, I guess they were different, right? Like the dating scene is different in Canada than in Jamaica. The men are a lot more forward in Jamaica. They are a lot more, unlike in Canada, where a man, you may need to ask him, "What are we?" A Jamaican man will tell you, "Oh, you are my girlfriend. In fact, I'm going to introduce you to my friends as my future wife," which is what happened to me after like 2 days of meeting a man. It was very funny. So there was that. There was that was different, but there was also just the transportation that was different. That was different to get used to in Canada. I'm used to like, taking a bus. In Jamaica, it's taxi and you're in a car with like a bunch of other people you don't know and you're all kind of squished in together. And getting used to that to me was very different. Certain other things, like because it's a developing country, like when the light goes out randomly or the water goes out randomly, and you have to learn to deal with that. Um, you know, I guess my husband's family, they kind of thought I was a princess because, like, I had to learn to wash clothes by hand. Like, I never had to do that. I always had a washer and a dryer. So it's like things like that that I kind of had to get used to. But I think the biggest thing was kind of the bureaucracy, and that's one of the reasons I was like, please get like the first time I'm like, please get me out of Jamaica, get me out, because sometimes the bureaucracy when you go to the bank, you're gonna be there for like a whole day, right? I mean, you are lucky if you don't have to come back. You have to be there for a whole day. When you do anything, it just takes a lot longer. to get done. Even for, I don't know, even for the ATMs, usually you're waiting in line for a good amount of time just to pull out some money. So it's just, it was things like that. Like the first time I came to Jamaica to live, I was not considering that it is different than Canada, which is very funny. It's a different country, but like my mindset, I was expecting Canadian service. I was expecting like the way Canada does things where you can, go into the bank and come out quickly. You can go do this and come back quickly. If someone says they're going to come fix something at a certain time, they will be there at that time. Like there were certain mindsets I had. I wasn't considering, oh, I'm actually in another country and they do things differently here. Just because I'm Canadian does not mean that like I think maybe I had this mindset that maybe just because I was Canadian that meant like it sounds bad, but it kind of felt like, oh, I'm bringing Canadian money, so everyone should kind of be tripping over maybe each other or what have you to get this Canadian money. That's not how it is. This is a whole different country. Just because you come from another country doesn't mean that they're going to cater to you in a specific way, like how you would get on the resort. If you're, going through a residency process, like they have their own process. It's not going to be quicker for you just because you're from Canada or the States or UK. They have a particular process that you need to follow. And it's, you need to make sure your things like your signatures match exactly or you're going to have a problem. Like it's things like that. Um, and there are also other conveniences that I had missed, like Amazon. It's small stuff. First world problems, as people say, like things like Amazon, things like going to like a coffee shop and getting a particular type of drink. They have a lot of more of those here now, but back then in 2015, it wasn't so much like that. Um, so just like conveniences like that, where I'm like, it just felt things would be so much easier in Canada. Um, and then, I guess I was missing kind of the pay because I tried to get a job down here at that time and they offered me about $2.30 an hour. And I said, oh no. And that's another thing I think people don't understand when they come to countries like this. Like the cost of living is lower for a reason because the pay for locals is significantly lower. And that was significant, right? Especially for someone like me who went to, um, well, I say university, but in the States it would be college, especially for someone, who went to schooling post-secondary and then you come to a developing country and find out, oh, they're going to pay you like $2 to $3 an hour. You're like, oh my goodness. So at that point, I was like, hey, maybe let's just go back to Canada because we can make more money. But the catch 22 is you make more money, but then everything else costs a lot more money, which is why we eventually ran back over here. So,
Yes. Oh, yes, I get that. Thank you for that perspective. And I imagine I've come across several people who've moved to the island too. Quite a bit of people have moved back. I kind of surprised. A lot of there's a gentleman who has a podcast. I don't know if you listen to him, Throb.
oh yeah.
Yeah, so he's in the grill and he's kind of talking about a lot of developments, new highways going in and linking the grill to Montego Bay and people who are moving there and really trying to build up the business district over there for people who are moving back. And when you go down, you see the development in Kingston, all across in Ochi, Negril, Montego Bay. So there's a lot of development going on. And so, but then there's people who are saying, oh, Jamaica isn't safe. You hear all these stuff in the news, but I don't really sense that when I'm there. And you've been living there now for how long?
We just came back last year. So like almost 6 months or so. that we've been here, but the last time I was here, it was like a couple years. So I had
Okay.
been here for about that time.
And what is your sense of security, both times? Like you were there multiple years the last time and now you've been back. Like, you see stuff in the news. Like how do you feel on a day-to-day basis getting around and just doing what you need to do?
Something that I say to people is when they bring that up, I let them know violence is everywhere. Like even in Canada, violence is everywhere. We've had people in Toronto who we had an instance of somebody like stabbing somebody else on a public transit bus. Like there are instances of violence everywhere. I don't like it's not limited to just Jamaica or just these developing countries. There's violence everywhere. Personally, I know that here, um, I haven't felt that. Like I've heard of it, and um, I know in certain areas here, but it's just like everywhere else. Everywhere has their areas that you kind of want to avoid. It's the same here. Um, in terms of violence, I know in particularly for Jamaica, what I've noticed is that the violence is really between locals, and it's usually something that is um, like gang related or has to do with illegal type activity. And if you're not into that, you're more than likely going to be fine. Um, but that's my take on it. Violence is everywhere. I have lived here like a local, take the taxi, use all the services the locals use. In fact, one time I thought I was taking a taxi. Uh, this was a couple years ago when I had first moved. I thought it was a taxi because not every taxi uses the designated taxi red plate. Some people they run their taxi just it's just kind of like whatever. I'm just gonna take this. I thought it was a taxi. It was not. So I went into a random man's car with his child, and I was okay. He took me downtown where I needed to go. But I was a lot more mindful. But even in those instances, I guess people would be like, "Oh, weren't you scared?" And I'm kind of like, "No, I wasn't." I mean, I realized after, like, "Oh, this is not a taxi. He's not stopping to pick up anyone else. He was just being, I guess, a kind person." Next time, I'll keep my wits about me a little better. But I haven't felt any form of violence. Like, I haven't even seen it. I hear about it. I haven't seen it. And when I'm here, I don't do things here that I wouldn't do in Canada. So if there's, for example, I'm not gonna walk with like a bunch of money in my hand in Canada. I'm not gonna do that here. Like there's certain things like that, I keep my purse close to me in Canada. I keep my purse close to me here. Even though I don't think anyone would, if it's on my person, I don't think anyone's actually going to do anything, but I keep my same wits about me regardless of where I am. Um, and if a place looks a little sketchy, I'm not gonna go there. Like if it's a little alleyway and it doesn't look like anyone's in there, I'm not gonna walk in there. I'm gonna go where the people are. And also, I make friends and I have family here. I'm going places with them. I'm usually not alone, but even when I had to go alone, by that time I was already comfortable because I had already been going with people who I knew. Like when I was going from my home to the town to go get groceries, I had been doing that with other people for a while, so I already knew the route before I could do it by myself. So it's kind of things like that, kind of follow where the people are going, keep your wits about you. Don't do anything in another country that you wouldn't do in your own country. um, that's the biggest one, I think. So, but then the next thing again is violence is everywhere. It's not like violence is just limited to Jamaica. Violence is everywhere. Violence is in Canada. Violence is in the US. Violence is in the UK. Violence is in Australia. Like, there's violence everywhere.
That's right. So I wonder when you're out and you're saying that you're going to the market, your accent is different, right? I could hear that there perhaps was some sort of a Jamaican connection there, and of course you're around your husband, but your accent is different in Jamaica. You're not going to sound like a local. You probably don't look like a local. So how are you received? What's that exchange like when you go out and you're stopping a taxi? Or you go to pay for something, like do you find that you have to bargain harder? Are people you've gotten used to it now and you kind of know how to work your way around it?
Um, See, most of the time I wasn't alone, and when I'm out in the market, like I pick up my patois a little bit, right? So I pick up my patois a little bit, and I try to say as few words as possible, but I don't find that I really have to bargain. Um, Surprisingly, I think if I was white or if I was another race, like I was not visibly black, because most people in Jamaica are visibly black, so it's easier for me to be invisible here. If I was not able to be invisible, I would probably need to bargain harder. But I find that because I can kind of blend in more, maybe outside of what I wear, because sometimes what I wear, they can tell, oh no, she's not from here. Um, I don't really have to bargain. Like the prices are usually set, and if I feel like if I feel apprehensive, like someone's going to jack up the price, I will just ask my husband or my sister-in-law or a friend, like, hey, could you come with me and could you talk to them? Because I'm afraid when they hear my accent, that price is going to go up when it doesn't need to. Um, but I haven't really had that trouble. Like even in the taxi, when I was taking taxi by myself, maybe by then they were used to me because I was taking the taxi to and from with my husband. So maybe by then they got used to my face and they're like, oh no, like she lives here. Like we know we've dropped her home. Like we know where she lives. We know that she's here. So I haven't found any issues with that. Um, Yeah, but most of the time, if I feel like someone's gonna jack up the price, I'm like, oh, Heavy Bear, can you come talk to this person? Can you, put on your patois, come talk to them? Because I don't want them to raise the price on me.
You hear sometimes a lot of talk primarily from the diaspora here as to why they may not want to go. There've been instances of targeting what they say is targeting of returning residents. So I'm wondering, like, what's the sense that you're getting? Are you getting firsthand information about that? Sounds like you've been able to blend in pretty well. Nobody's really. Do you guys feel like you're a target? Oh, that house over there, they have a foreigner living there, or anything like that.
No, I think what the issue is when that happens is that people are leaving to go to foreign, to go to Canada, the States, the US. They're leaving, and when they come back, they're trying to go back in their previous community where they were. And I think that is kind of where the issue may be, like, especially if they were somewhere that was kind of more impoverished and they're coming back to live there. That's where people may be like, oh, you know, you're coming back with foreign money. You're coming back from wherever you were over there. That means you must got it. And so I must come after you. But in my case, I mean, we came back technically to the same house that we left because we're renting with my sister-in-law. So she kept this place the entire time. But the thing is, we came back to somewhere where there's a lot of like working people. So because of that, I don't think like it's easier for us to blend in because there's a lot of other working people. We're not standing out. So if we buy a car, which we did the other day, there's a lot of other people with cars, similar to ours or even better than ours in our scheme or on our street. But I think that's the issue. The targeting issue is when people leave and then they come back and go back into those same communities. And it's like, no, you don't want to do that. When you leave and you come back, you want to go into a community where there are other like working people, or you want to go into like a gated community So, when it's gated, there's only certain people who can come in and out, right? You got the security guard there and everything. But I wouldn't recommend like people leaving and then going back straight into their community because that's where you see like the jealousy. And then they think, oh, let's target this person. At least that's what, um, as far as I've seen, that's when the targeting kind of happens.
And I remember thinking of a situation recently of a person who have been considering for years of wanting to go back. And I was thinking, there, you can't go back to that same community where you came from. Yes, there's family property and there's still a house there and it's available, but you will be taxed by the locals, like overly taxed because they think you have more money than they do. And whatever stories they're making up, it's just I wouldn't think it's the safest. So yeah, you're underlining that for me too, and I actually do think that's a valid point you're making there.
I mean, unless you talk to them and let them know why you came back and that, hey, I went over there and I couldn't make it. I came back with nothing and no money. Maybe they'll leave you alone. Maybe. But yeah, in general, I wouldn't recommend that.
Right, yeah, things have changed, I think, since I was there going to school, but I still feel relatively safe. I really don't feel that sort of scare that they're trying to put out there. I really don't, but it all depends. There's pockets of things and different areas that are going on that you have to stay clear of and be mindful where you're going. Just like here in the US, there are certain cities that are, in major cities around the US where there's like so much violence, worse than Jamaica. Okay,
Yep.
worse than Jamaica every day. So it's always about putting everything in perspective.
We thank our listeners around the world and we appreciate your continued support as we build our human library. Please remember to give us a 5-star review, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, and circle of influence.